What is up, y'all? I'm Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement, and I am joined today with former client and now friend, Lindsey Doan from Adapt Movement and Rehab in Seattle, Washington. And Lindsey and I met did we meet once or twice? I know we met once at a seminar, but I think we actually met twice in person before we started working together. Did we meet at Monarch as well, or was it just at Turf?
Just at Turf, I
Just a
think.
tur Okay, that's right. We
Yeah.
were chatting online,
Yeah,
and
we were
then
chatting
we ended
online.
up being at the same seminar in
Yeah.
California, and the rest is history. But it's always funny when that happens. This happened to me a couple times now, where I show up at a seminar and I'm like, I recognize you,
It was
and I
wild
know,
because you had a hat on and I
yeah,
like turned and I'm like, I think, wait, Ray? I
yeah,
was like, wait a
yeah, yeah. It
minute.
happened to another one of my clients too, Richie, where I was like, dude, Richie? And it was like, yeah. So it's just funny, like when the internet actually turns into real life, I think it shocks everybody that you can actually still meet people in person.
It's wild. Yeah.
But fill us in, give us a little bit about your background and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm out in Seattle. I've been out here, shoot, I think about like 9 years now, but originally from Kansas. So I started out as a traveling PT. I did that for about a year, but as much as I loved the nomad lifestyle in some ways, I also was really missing the like consistency, particularly in the PT world
Mm,
and being able to like follow through with a case and because I was right out of school and really be able to like follow up with people and find out like what it is to work with someone a little bit longer term.
yeah.
And so when I took a job or a contract out in Seattle, um the clinic that I was at, I was, covering maternity leave. I think the person I was covering for decided to move back, home. So they had been trying to get me to stay for a while. I already had one of my best friends out here. The people I met there were really great. There was a little bit of a mentorship program going on. So I just ended up deciding to stay.
Yeah.
Um, Stayed there for a couple years before it got taken over by a bigger, little bit more mill type
Corporate.
company. Yeah,
Yeah.
corporate-y.
Yeah.
So switched companies at that time and stayed at that company for 6 years, a little bit more sport-based clinic. Um, Really great company for me at the time. One-on-one still. Started out with an hour. Of course, insurance stuff changed to where we kind of got brought down to more 45-minute, treatments. But love my coworkers. It was a great place, but just over the years, with just how I wanted to treat, and also just what insurance took away from us and how I
Yeah.
just was aligned as a PT and the more and more that I wanted to do things, I don't want to say like not under the guise of someone else, but just away from insurance and away from what it took, the time and the mental energy and everything that I really
Yeah.
wanted to give to my clients. Plus meeting others that were doing it in a cash-based model, which I had honestly never heard of before.
Yeah.
Um, it just started to open my eyes to something, honestly, what I felt was better, more aligned with how I wanted to do it. And so once that world was opened up to me, it just, I couldn't get it out of my mind.
You're like, wait a second. There's people doing whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. That seems pretty
Absolutely.
cool. It's it's
Absolutely.
it's always kind of funny, like everybody's insurance stories. And it's always like it started out really good and then it got progressively worse. And I've yet to hear like a story that involves insurance where it's like it started out really bad and then it got better.
And then
Like
it got better.
it's just kind of funny how the story is always that. Well, what was kind of going on at that time, that had you kind of reach out for help? I know we were talking, like I said in the beginning, we were talking kind of early on, but we weren't like actively talking about working together. And then I think it was maybe a couple weeks after we actually met in person where you were like, "Hey, I'm actually ready to do this thing." Like, what was kind of going on at that portion of time that you thought, "Hey, it's time to exit the traditional system and it's time to start like figuring out how to do this on my own."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, it had been in my mind for so long to where it's like I knew I was going to do it. It was just a matter of like how and when,
Yeah.
because it was just so deeply like I was so deeply passionate about it that if I was going to stay in the field, this was the only way, to be honest, that I was going to stay. I was
Mm,
otherwise going to leave the field, and which that's hard for me to say as someone
yeah.
who loves this field so much, but I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
Um, and so I really wanted to go more remote. And when you and I think talked in person, and it was brief, but we had a little chance to talk, but you're like, it's really hard to get started in remote unless you have the following, whether it be on social media or some other way to just get the leads and get people in which I don't have, the social media following in that way, that presence. Um, and it made sense to me. I was like, I don't know how to bring that up. And you're like, it helps so to maybe start kind of like a hybrid way to start
Yeah.
in person and also have this hybrid way of bringing people from some that you do like in person, but also work with them online
Yeah.
and start to bridge that gap a little bit in that way. And I was like, I've never thought about that. I really like that. It's going to help bring me the chance to do more of this programming side of things that I love, that I've already been doing with some clients, but also like get better at it.
Hmm.
Do the
Start
thing that I feel
talking
like
about
is,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that I feel is so aligned that helps people more.
Yeah.
Um, but then also like get out on my own, get my own clients, and then see how it works. And I do still love working with people in person. And so I started thinking about it more and more. And once that like seed had been planted,
Yeah.
it just started to click for
Yeah.
me of like, okay, this is it. This is your door. This is your entry point into it. And since I had already, again, been thinking about leaving and been thinking about doing it on my own for so long, once I had like, again, this is your entry point of how to do it, I was like, all
Yeah.
right, finally, now I'm ready to go.
Yeah. It's interesting. You bring up a lot of good points to touch on there. Number one, I think more people than are willing to admit have contemplated leaving the PT field. And sometimes entrepreneurship is maybe the actually the gateway to that, right? It's like testing the theory on, do I need to scratch this itch before I actually make that decision? So anybody out there that's thinking like, I've worked with people where they're like, look, I started my business and I'm still not in it. Like I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
You want to just make sure all the doors are closed before I think you move on. And so I think that that's a really interesting thing. One of the reasons why Engage Movement exists is to keep great providers in the profession, because most of the people that we work with are coming from the outpatient ortho realm, and burnout's real, low wages are real, emotional burnout is real. It's a difficult thing to do. The second thing that you said was the going fully online. I think a lot of people assume that going fully online is going to be easier, less time intensive, than starting your own in-person business. It's so much harder.
Yeah.
It's so much harder. Have you experienced, now that you've kind of done the in-person side, the blended practice model, but you've also like kind of now tapped into the online realm.
Mhm.
What have you experienced in the reality of that? Because I think it's easy for people to say, well, Ray, of course you're going to say that. You're biased, like you teach people how to do hybrid blended, but like what have you experienced in that process personally?
I think they both have their challenges and um it's as well as their I don't know, like their eases, like
Mm,
their benefits and things there. It's one of those things of like, I know the in-person side so well. I've done
yeah,
that for, basically a decade. And so, in regards to the actual working with people and being there, being able to troubleshoot on the spot, being able to adapt right then and there, it's very easy.
yeah,
But in regards to being able to also like I don't always love that because I also think that sometimes we need to, and this is why I also love the like remote side of things as well as the hybrid side of things, is that sometimes I think things need a little more time to
Hmm.
um, slow cook, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think the hybrid and the remote is so beneficial, but it's also can be so challenging with that to otherwise get people to buy into it.
Yeah.
And so it adds a whole nother level because they don't understand it
Yeah.
to get clients and to get leads. So I think it adds a whole nother level to the front end that isn't there necessarily with the in-person,
Yeah.
but the in-person has, I think, some things on the back end that is missing. Like I guess
For
like once
sure.
they're feeling better, once they're like maybe out of pain. So it's switching. I'm not quite sure how to say this, but like, and that's where I think the hybrid stuff comes in of where you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. Like you're getting the in-person and then it's moving into the remote and the
Hmm.
programming that's where they're out of pain, but they need maybe more touch points between sessions, but they need better programming. They
They
need to
still
act,
need you.
yeah,
They still need a lifeline to you. And what
absolutely. But
you
they don't need the full session. They don't need me to sit
correct,
there and count their reps.
it can be a waste of time to both
They
people,
can.
right?
Yeah.
There's a couple things that you said that I think are really important because number one is there's the path to meaningful revenue. And I think the path to meaningful revenue is way faster when you have an in-person component in the business. Because, like you said, you already know how to do it, you already know how to deliver it, and it's way easier to find and corral your ideal client,
Yeah.
right? But then we have like the path to sustainability, where if we just look at the in-person side, I think a lot of people, even build a traditional cash practice and they're like, wait a second, why am I burnt out on a traditional cash practice? It's because you've replicated the same problem on a smaller scale. So when we look at path to sustainability, I think that the remote side is what provides that sustainability, right? And what you're talking about is exactly what I experienced when I had my cash practice, where it's like I have this client that still needs support. They're out of pain, but they are limited in capacity. And it seems like such a mismatch to bring that person in for sessions.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to work with them for another 6 months, but not see them in person. Like, why doesn't that exist?
Yeah. 100%.
And that was beauty for me. Do you have anything to kind of add on that?
No, I mean that's it to a T. You
The,
said it right there.
the last thing that you said, closing this loop, is some of the things that we need to do. And this is something that you and I worked on extensively when we were working together one on one. Was if you want more remote clients or blended clients, you really need to talk about your blended offer, your
Mhm.
remote offer, the problems that it solves, who it's for, why you practice blended. And you were somebody that I could tell had a really high level of conviction in the way you were delivering your outcomes, right? The blended model, biasing towards that remote option. Talk to me a little bit about what you've done from a content messaging standpoint that you feel like works really well. Because I remember you would come to the group calls, or I would see you post something on, your story, and I would say, "Hey, just more of this. Like, you don't need to do anything different. You just need to do more of this consistently." Talk to me a little bit about kind of that process for you, because I know that was something that was hard for you, but once you figured it out, you've been really good, to this day doing it.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I'm still working on. But with just talking about the prescriptive exercise program or showing that, like, okay, yes, I'm seeing people in person, but this is not all that it's about. And honestly, this isn't even the main thing that it's about. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is the pretty, like, yeah, these are where you're getting the videos that I'm posting, But what it's really about is what's happening when they're not with me.
Yeah.
The touch points, the sessions that they're doing when they're not with me, the progressions, the when they're having a flare up, they message me, and talking about those things on my social media and in my posts to show that it's not about the in-person sessions, it's about what they're doing between the in-person
Mm,
sessions is where the outcomes are really coming, because that's where I truly believe most of the benefit is with most of my
yeah.
clients.
What have you seen from an outcome standpoint in comparing the ways that you've practiced, where, it was essentially we get you out of pain and we send you on your way, versus how you're practicing now, where we get you out of pain and then we provide you with an offer that actually solves the next problem that comes down the pipeline? I know what I saw with my outcomes, but I'm curious, like, what have you seen with yours?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I have a couple clients right now that I'd seen like at my old clinic that I now am purely programming for.
Mm,
They started out like where I maybe saw them for like an in-person session
yeah,
for a eval. And then they turned to maybe once a month for a few sessions, and now they're on remote programming only.
yeah.
And it's been really cool to see. I think the biggest thing is their confidence
Hmm.
has improved drastically. And they're like a lot of the mindset shifts are there because the behavior changes, I think, are one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Because those aren't the things that you can change over the night, but they're also not the things that you can really like verbalize and explain away in
In
just a few
person.
sessions.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
have to,
Yeah.
like, you can talk about them, but they have to come from practicing them. And
Yes.
so they're going to do this block of exercises and we're going to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to give them like little feedback and say like, "Hey, that's awesome. Like you're practicing this. Way to go." And like celebrate the little wins together. And then after a few blocks of doing that, and they're seeing that, like, oh, wow, I'm like doing these dynamic movements that I used to be afraid of, then they're like, oh, wow, I'm doing these dynamic movements that I
Yeah.
used to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And it suddenly clicks, and they're getting these light bulb moments that their confidence has improved and that their behavior on that has improved, that they're not avoiding those patterns that they used to avoid. But that's not something that can just change overnight, no matter how much like insurance wants us to believe that, or,
Sure.
other people think that it can just happen by a neuro hack or something like that.
Well, but the bar of what insurance wants us to get clients back to is extremely low,
Absolutely.
right? And anything that we're generally doing above and beyond that, it's like we're justifying in a different way through documentation to say that like they can't do X, Y, and Z, but really X, Y, and Z is associated with the thing that they actually want to do.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to work within those constraints. And this is why I say like, look, there's nothing wrong with traditional insurance-based clinics. They're just built for this very specific consumer that is literally just looking to get back to like the baseline level of life, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I saw time and time again when I was discharging clients is they were constantly going back to their old activities and they were always searching for the ceiling, which puts them in a position where they might break through their capacity level. And so one of the things that we've taught, you guys in our program is everybody's searching for the ceiling, but we need to help them reestablish the floor.
Yeah.
And what the prescriptive exercise program does over time is it consistently re-raises the floor to or beyond prior level of injury. And so gone are the days where it's like, all right, we'll go into the gym and just like test it out and push it a little bit. Let me know how it feels, and I'll see you back in a week. And now it's like, when you go into the gym, you are going to do these things for the next 4 weeks. We're going to build enough chronic workload, and then we're going to actually bump you up by 50, percent, 80%, whatever, depending on how they tolerate it.
Yeah.
we actually get to control that. Like we get to do the things. Anybody that says that they want to be the provider that bridges the gap from rehab to performance, I would argue if you don't have a virtual offer in your business, you're probably not doing it because you're probably not seeing that person enough times in person to actually accumulate the workload that you would need, which is kind of this paradox in the rehab space. Whereas
Yeah.
people get better, we see them less. But if we actually look at what we need to do in return to sport, we need to see them more.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits that mold very uniquely. What were some of the things that you kind of noticed along the way that you felt like were unique about the process of us working together?
I think with the like one-on-one and the group calls, there was enough brought in like on the group calls that got me thinking of like, oh, I hadn't thought about that,
Mm,
or I hadn't thought of it from that viewpoint,
yeah,
that it got me to um maybe challenge some of my biases or at least think about things from different viewpoints. So it was really helpful. And then with the one-on-one calls, really working on mindset
yeah,
was really, really helpful. And so it really got me to get out of just like in PT, get out of a protocol based, viewpoint of
yeah,
things and into a principles and like, looking at heuristics, looking at things there. It's like, no, let's get into like frameworks and stuff is helpful, but let's look at the mindset. Let's look at the behavior behind things and figure out the why a little bit more rather than just a like step A, B, C, D. And so that was always so much more helpful to get to the underlying reason of things
yeah.
than a protocol, I guess.
There's so many people out there that are like, well, just give me the strategies and tactics. But like becoming the person who can actually implement those strategies and tactics consistently over time, who can walk into a gym where you know nobody and introduce yourself or, host your first workshop, right? It's easy to say, hey, the way to generate leads is hosting a workshop. It's harder to become the person who actually does that.
Yeah.
That I think is one of the most powerful things that we do within the program. And one of the ways that I feel like I uniquely coach people, right? I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm not just going to hold you accountable. I'm going to try to help you figure out why do you have a hard time holding yourself accountable? Because just
Yeah.
like with our patients, with our clients, there's going to be a moment where, you say, "Hey Ray, it's time for me to spread my wings and go do this on my own." And I have to trust that you're prepared enough to go do that, right? So that's I really appreciate you saying that the mindset shift is something because I think more people need to hear that like this is much more of a mental game than it is just like a business out of a box game.
Oh, for sure. No,
You
I think
know?
there's one time in particular where I was really struggling with how I wanted to, I think, structure something within my business with from like a training versus like rehab side of things. And you were talking to me about how the time, I want to kind of get this right, but during the time of being in the clinic after 10 years and being in an insurance-based clinic in that time and how I needed to kind of like take this time to reset and figure out how I really wanted to move forward and not just like move forward but kind of let go of a lot of
Mm,
those past things. And it wasn't like in a harsh way, but it was in a like a man, you need to like not just like figure this out, but kind of like a come to terms with some things here
yeah,
because there's something holding you back because you're kind of still holding on to so much of this from before. And I knew that, but it was also like it's okay to let that go. Like
yeah,
you don't want to hold on to this anymore. Because you left that for a reason and it's time to let that go. Like it's
yeah.
time to like not let that be a part of this decision anymore. And it was so helpful, but also like, all right, I need to confront this a little
Mm,
bit. And so I like vividly remember that chat and how much it affected me because it was one of those times where I'm like, I need to like let these past years go because they had burned me. I think that's what you had
It-
said specifically is like
yeah,
those times in the insurance realm kind of burned your love for PT
yeah.
and you otherwise need to let those go or kind of decide like what you're going to do with PT. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Okay. All
right.
right. Guess we'll go look at this one in the face. But it's kind of interesting because what we've generally seen or what I've seen in coaching people for what 4 or 5 years in the rehab space and close to 10 years now in the coaching and rehab space. But what I've seen is cycles are either broken or they repeat. And so it's really easy for us to fall back into familiar and known rather than continue to step into familiar and unknown, especially when you've gone to school and received a doctorate level degree that tells you, no, 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 this is the way it's done. And here we are saying, yeah, but there's like another way to do it
Yeah.
that they didn't teach you about in school because the system isn't designed that way. And so there would actually be no benefit for them to teach you like that, right? It's not school's problem. They're teaching you to operate like the 99%. We want to teach you how to operate like the one. Like it's just a completely different model.
Yeah.
And so it's always just something that I think people really need to consider is, it's hard to close doors. I'm somebody personally that struggles with closing chapters, and that holds on to things a little bit longer than I should at times. But sometimes you have to say, like, do I believe in this? Okay, then I need to fully commit.
Yeah.
What's life kind of like now on the other side? Now that you've got the blended practice model up and running, you're out of the clinic. Like, what's kind of Lindsay's life like now?
Yeah. It is, I mean, it's so different. Like my stress levels, I'm not gonna say I'm not stressed, but it's a different type of
Yeah,
stress. I am someone who does have like chronic migraines, and definitely getting some of that under control in different ways, but I have some like things there that I figured out, but it's been so much nicer to not be at someone else's schedule so
yeah,
that I can manage that so much better.
yeah,
To not have to always be in the clinic while I'm managing that. The
yeah,
flexibility of it is
yeah,
so nice. Um, to be able to like sleep in a little bit. Not that I'm like a crazy sleeping in late person, but to not always have to be getting up crazy early has helped my
yeah,
migraines a lot.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, just the flexibility of the schedule is so nice. To be able to take my dog on a walk most mornings and be home for dinner, all of those sort of things.
regaining
And I
control of your
really like,
life.
yeah, I
Yeah,
really like, the with the remote programming, being able to work from home, be able to set up like different, whether it's in the kitchen or in my office or, different places
yeah.
to
I
sit
see you on
down
the bike
and
all the time.
on the bike. Yep, doing my
Yeah,
continuing ed from the
yeah, yeah,
bike. But to get my workouts in, I set that in my schedule. So it's just, I feel like I'm a lot more consistent in things that can take care of myself so that I'm able to give back to my clients a lot easier. I'm able to just that do a lot more continuing ed. I'm able to be able to like provide actual like better care, like my mental capacity to give back to the clients that I'm working
yeah,
with is so much more there. Like I have so much more to give to the clients when I'm working with them. Um, and so I'm not going to say that there's not stress because there is, but it's a different type of stress. And I also feel like I'm like getting that under control in different ways, because that's also part of being an entrepreneur. And
yeah,
I think it's always going to be some level of it, but you learn to manage it. You learn to become more resilient with it, and manage it better. And so the flexibility is huge. I don't think I could ever go back to having someone else's stressors be my stressors
yeah,
versus the fact that the stress that I have, it's because it's my choice or it's the stressors that I get to choose
yeah,
and versus having it be someone else's things that are like the way that they're wanting them done. And I'm like, that's not the thing that we should be stressing about right now.
What
So it's so much nicer.
one of my previous mentors said, like everything's hard. Working for somebody else is hard, working for yourself is hard. But the beauty of life is that we get to choose our hard.
Yeah,
And so I think I'm in agreement with you that I would choose working for myself and the difficulties that come with that rather than, working for somebody else and having everything. Like I didn't realize how much of my stress was created by somebody else controlling my time, my day, until I didn't have that stressor anymore, right? So like for anybody out there that's on the fence, sometimes you just need to put yourself in a scenario that's different to figure out what you actually need. And like, look, you can always go get another job. Like you can always
100%.
go back to the old clinic. Sometimes it's the right move for people too. Like I'll straight up tell people if they ask me, like, hey, maybe it's time for you to go back. Like you're not ready for this journey yet.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap this up, put a bow on it. What's a piece of advice that you would leave to anybody that is maybe on the fence listening to this and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting something on my own. I'm thinking about converting my model to blended, going online." What's a little piece of advice that you would leave to them?
Hmm. I don't know. I think it's kind of wrapped up in what you just said is that I don't think that you will I think you will regret not trying more than you will regret trying it.
Yeah.
And so that's always kind of been my biggest takeaway is that I'm not really someone who believes in regrets in the sense that um, if you give it your all, if you go into a situation with the information that you have on hand and it doesn't work out, then you know for next time and you've
Yeah.
learned something. And so the next time you take that information and you might make a different decision. But
Yep.
now you know. And so I don't really believe in regrets in that space. And so give it a try and learn something from it. And so I don't really think you can regret it if you give it a try.
There is no perfect time. There is no perfect scenario. There is no right decision. There is no wrong decision. There's the decision you make and the iterations that come after it. And if you're
Absolutely.
one of those people that is waiting for perfect, if you're one of those people that is waiting for the conditions to always be right, you may be searching for a feeling that is doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's actually what keeps a lot of people stuck.
Stuck.
Um, Lindsay, I appreciate you so much as a person, as a client, as a friend, sharing your story and taking charge and something that we were chatting about prior to this was just like the level of ownership that you've been taking over your life and it's been really cool to see. Where can people find you and connect with you if that's something that they're looking to do? What's the best place for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram is probably one of the easiest. I'm always responding to DMs there. So my Instagram is at DPT Lindsay. That's Lindsey, D. So DPT Lindsay D. Or on my email is, wow, just forgot it for a second there. Lindsay at adaptmovementandrehab.com. It's kind of a long one. So sometimes that
Yeah.
gets a little lost in translation
I
there.
do that all the time. I'm like, you can find me, but now it's like I've said it enough. But well, thank you so much, Lindsay. If you're looking to connect with me, you can also find me on Instagram at Ray Gorman DPT. You can find us at engagemovement.com. And I'm actually going to drop a training in the comments or in the caption of wherever this video is housed, where you can watch a video on the exact model that Lindsay uses if that's something that you're looking for. So Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I really appreciate you, and I'm
Yeah.
so stoked for all the changes that you made. But thanks so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. I really appreciate it, Ray.